The very air, here, behind this colossal pillar, holds its breath. A silence so profound it deafens, broken only by the insidious rustle of heavy silk. A sound barely there, yet sharp enough to sever the thread of an unspoken prayer. Torchlight, a treacherous, dancing finger of flame, dares to trace the curve of a cheekbone, the tremor of a lower lip. Is it fear distorting that face, caught in the flickering glow? Or a terrible resolve, colder and harder than the very stones themselves, forged in the deepest chambers of a soul caught between the relentless pull of power and the stark imperative of survival? These walls, you see them? They are not merely stone. They are the silent, unblinking witnesses to centuries of ambition, of betrayal, of clandestine pacts sealed in blood and tears. Every gasp, every whispered curse, every heartbeat that faltered beneath the crushing weight of a crown, these very stones remember. It was in this suffocating heart of the dynasty, in this very chamber, that the delicate, sacred threads of a bloodline, ancient and revered, were ruthlessly, irrevocably cut. This was the night. The night history itself was violently rewritten. A desperate sacrifice, a grim necessity, they called it. To save one future, another must be extinguished. A life, a destiny, lost to the cold embrace of expediency, drowned in a poison so potent it left no trace but the chilling absence. This night, here, within these omnipresent shadows, a queen's iron will sanctioned the unthinkable. No one was meant to hear the final, ragged breath. No one was meant to witness the swift, brutal act that redefined succession, ensuring the survival of one branch of the family tree while another withered into silence. Yet we stand here, unseen, unheard, listening to the echoes that refuse to fade. The whispers of the forbidden carried on the very breath of this palace. And what do they tell us, these ancient stones? They tell us of the true price of a throne. They tell us of that night. The aftershocks of that night, they still lingered, perhaps, in the deep-set lines around the Sultan's eyes, or the sudden hush that would fall upon the courtiers. But here, within the gilded heart of the imperial harem, a different kind of truth asserted itself. Here, the world was woven not from shock, but from silk and calculation. Look closely, past the veil of whispers, beyond the shock that still clung to the very stones of the palace. The chamber, itself a jewel box, breathed opulence, yet it was an opulence that felt heavy, almost suffocating. Walls of polished mother-of-pearl caught the nascent light, fragmenting it into 1,000 muted gleams, each a silent testament to power, each a tiny mirror reflecting the truth, that beauty here was a gilded cage. Gold thread, spun finer than a spider's web, cascaded down tapestries depicting forgotten hunts and triumphs, their patterns absorbing every sound, every secret, every unvoiced fear. On the floor, carpets so thickly embroidered with crimson and sapphire seemed to drink the very air, silencing footsteps, muffling intent, ensuring that only the truly essential sounds, a rustle of silk, a whispered name, could ever truly pierce the pervasive hush. Every surface, from the carved ivory screens to the obsidian inkwells, gleamed with the costly sheen of centuries of dominion, each artifact a silent witness to countless ambitions born and extinguished. This, dear viewer, is the stage where the true drama of a dynasty unfolds, where every step is a precise calculation, every murmured word a potential weapon in the ruthless game of queens. And there, amidst this relentless splendor, she sat. Not a woman of flesh and blood, not merely a queen by title, but the very architect of fates, the weaver of the imperial tapestry. Her silhouette, framed against the arched windows, was a study in controlled power, a monument to endurance. Her face, etched with the unforgiving wisdom of years and the scars of battles fought in silence, held a gaze that was both utterly weary and utterly without mercy. Those eyes, they had seen empires rise and fall within the confines of these walls, had witnessed the brutal truth of bloodline and the casual cruelty of ambition. They were the eyes of one who understood that survival was not a choice, but a daily, brutal covenant. A constant negotiation with the shadows that lurked behind every smile, every decree. Outside, beyond the intricate latticework, the world awakened. Dewdrops clung to the glass panes, trembling like unshed tears, reflecting the blurred panorama of the city below. Did she see them? Did she remember a time when such simple beauty might move her? Or were they merely water, a fleeting distortion of a reality she had long since mastered? Then, a subtle tremor in the air, a breath held too long. Her hand, heavy with rings that whispered of ancient conquests and forgotten sacrifices, moved with a practiced, almost dismissive grace. And from her silken sleeve, a small object tumbled, falling with a soundless finality to the polished marble. A handkerchief. Pure, unblemished silk, dyed the deepest, most dangerous shade of midnight, embroidered with a motif of entwined serpents, a symbol of power, or perhaps of cunning. It lay there, a dark bloom on the pale stone, a shadow cast not by light, but by intent, arresting the eye with its stark presence. Accidental? Perhaps for a lesser mind. Or was it a deliberate missive, its ominous color and intricate pattern a coded key to a future betrayal? A silent promise, woven into fabric, that the game had shifted, that the pieces were already in motion, that the poison was already prepared, not for her enemy, but for a rival within her own court, an heir presumptive, or a lover whose loyalty had waned. The very air seemed to thicken with its unspoken message. This, my friends, is the truth they tried to bury. A narrative stripped bare of convenient morality. This is the story of survival, stark and unyielding, where the loudest declarations are often found in the most profound silence. The air, thick with the scent of roasted lamb and jasmine, hummed with deceptive merriment. 1,000 candles, each flame a tiny, dancing eye, reflected off gilded platters and polished marble. The Sultan's grand hall, a riot of color and sound, presented a meticulously crafted illusion of peace. Laughter, too boisterous to be genuine, mingled with the plaintive strains of the ney and the rhythmic beat of drums. Wine, ruby red, flowed. But from my vantage point, here, behind this ancient pillar, one learns to see beyond the shimmering facade. The grandest feasts often serve as backdrops for the darkest deeds, a stage where betrayal is the main course. Look closer, past the swirling dancers, past the jesters' antics. Your gaze, like mine, must settle upon the main table, a veritable landscape of culinary excess. Mountains of spiced pilaf, jeweled pomegranates, figs bursting with honey. And there, amidst this decadent abundance, stood the silver chalice. It gleamed under the candlelight, catching every flicker, an innocent vessel holding cool sherbet. Yet it drew the eye, pulling at the very thread of the evening's unraveling. A silent, potent promise, or a deadly threat. This chalice, you understand, was more than just a cup. It was the nexus of all desires, all fears, all the unspoken horrors that lurked in the shadows of the court. The women sat poised, statuesque in their finest silks, each a queen in me. The silence that followed was not the quiet of peace, but the suffocating hush of a tomb. The air, once thick with urgent whispers and the sharp scent of fear, now carried only the faint, metallic tang of regret. The palace, a living beast of stone and ambition, exhaled slowly, attempting to erase the memory of what had transpired within its gilded walls. The very same hands that once wove tapestries of triumph now scrubbed at floors, not for dirt, but for specters. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer, deeper, concealing not just the corners of a room, but the truth itself, a truth too potent to be truly buried. They sought to rewrite the annals, to stitch new narratives into the rich, heavy silk of history, to proclaim a natural passing, a sudden illness, a fate decreed by God, when we, behind these very pillars, knew the truth. A single drop, a single choice, a single act of betrayal. The poison, once a tool of desperate ambition, became a permanent scar etched upon the very soul of the dynasty. A secret so profound, so heinous, it seeped not into the earth beneath the throne, but directly into the pulsating current of the bloodline itself. How could they believe such an indelible stain could simply vanish? For 5 centuries, that day has cast its relentless shadow across these lands. An invisible thread, woven with strands of fear and suspicion, began to bind generations. It shaped the character of every sultan, every Valide sultan, every ambitious sister and calculating concubine who walked these hallowed halls. Their paranoia, their ruthlessness, their unyielding, almost desperate grip on power, do you not see it? It was born from that singular, unforgivable event. The chilling understanding that even within your own kin, within the sacred circle of family, the deadliest threat could reside. The price of trust, measured in drops of poison, became the ultimate currency of survival in this ruthless game of queens. The palace may have tried to bury it deep beneath layers of marble and decree, to silence the whispers with grand pronouncements, but such a wound never truly heals. It festers, it whispers from the deepest corners, it teaches. It molds the very air we breathe within these walls. And so, here we stand, 5 centuries later, and the echoes of that fateful betrayal still resonate. They inform the alliances, the bitter rivalries, the quiet murders veiled as accidents, the constant gnawing anxiety in the eyes of power. They explain why the eyes of a ruler, even today, still dart to the corners of a room, still scan for the unseen threat, the hidden hand. The past is not merely prologue, it is the very fabric of our present, whispering its secrets from the depths of the shadow. Can you hear it? The silence, stretching across half a millennium, still speaking volumes, still defining everything. Here, amidst these ancient stones, the whispers cease. Yet the echoes, they linger. Behind this very pillar, where secrets congealed into the mortar, we have borne witness. The veil, woven from ambition and fear, is finally torn. What lay beneath, festering in power's dark heart, is now laid bare. A truth buried 5 centuries beneath gilded lies and treacherous silk has clawed its way to the surface. It is the grim testament to dominion's eternal price. The throne, you see, demands not merely fealty, but souls. And bloodline, meant to bind a dynasty, too often becomes its most potent instrument of destruction. Betrayal, a silent poison, courses through empire's veins, leaving shadows no light can dispel. These walls, mute chroniclers of ambition and despair, absorbed the weight of every plotted whisper, every desperate plea, every choked silence. They saw queens rise and fall, their fates etched in power's cruel geometry. This is no mere history, no dusty anecdote. This is a warning, a chilling mirror held up to human striving itself. For even in the profoundest hush, when all is still, when the last breath of a dying empire fades, the truth, unyielding, relentless, will always find its voice. It may speak softly, a rustle of ancient parchment, a glint in a forgotten portrait, but its resonance will shatter any illusion. Its echo, once unleashed, cannot be silenced. And so, the story the palace didn't want you to know now lives.